And I'm live. Holy cow. Hey, this is just Randy with the Emperor Snowman, and tonight I am going to be discussing the second episode in which you should watch. You watch them however you want to watch them. The way I feel you should watch them is in sequential order of the Clone Wars animation series. And the reason why is because I once started the animation. I used to love all the movies. I was just a Star Wars movie lover. Never watched the animation. Decided to try it one day, and it just flipped and flopped, and I just couldn't figure out the pattern. And then I find a couple years later, that you got to watch them in sequential order. I had no clue that they came in some special sequential order, and once I started watching them, I fell in love with the Clone Wars animation series. So here we go. In last night's video, we discussed the first ever episode, which should be Cat and Mouse, which is season 2, episode 16. And that's the first one, according to George, not George of the Jungle. According to George, that's the order in which you should start. So the very first episode is season 2, episode 16, Cat and Mouse. And y'all remember that's where, Anakin and Obi-Wan are trying to get to the planet surface to drop off supplies, and Anakin ends up killing Admiral Trench, and he defies Obi-Wan's orders. So anyways, so you saw that video, I hope. If not, go back and watch it. And here we are live with Hidden Enemy. That's it. It's season 1, episode 16. And just to give a quick synopsis on it before I get into how much I like this episode, and it's not a filler. I don't care what anybody says. I guess it could be to some people, but to me, this is not a filler episode. And I'll explain why in a minute. Now, this is the one where Obi-Wan and Anakin are in separate towers down on the planet surface, and the droids start attacking because they know their location. And once Anakin and a couple clone troopers scale over and ride those tripwires across from one building to the next and help Obi-Wan escape, they realize that they have a spy amongst them. So what's cool about this is now the clone troopers are having to investigate themselves in order to find out who this spy is, while Obi-Wan and Anakin try to figure out who the spy is by going to the Separatist control room. Now, someone had left a comm link on and heard their plan. So Obi-Wan and Anakin are going into a trap into the Separatist control room, and nobody's stopping them. They're just going to waltz right through the front door. And because it's a trap, and they realize this, they're Jedi, right? They realize this. Now, with that said, the clone troopers are chasing another clone trooper, what appears to be a clone trooper, through the halls of their station, and they lose track of them, and they find out or realize that they went to the mess hall. So what they did is they started checking the clone trooper stations to see which one is sending out a certain wavelength so that they can figure out and pinpoint which group of clone troopers holds the spy. So with that said, they talk to those clone troopers, and they all seem to be having they all have an alibi. And the head clone trooper, the boss of that small battalion, is trying to pinpoint it on one clone trooper, because he was collecting droid fingers, which is a no-no, and he's trying to pinpoint it. Well, once that guy feels threatened, he starts throwing accusations back at their leader, and we determine and we find out that clone trooper that is in charge of those 5 was actually the spy. And now he's on the run, blowing up all the Jedi's and clone troopers' equipment so that he can, get free. He wants to be free. Well, with all that said, Anakin and Obi-Wan, they go in to the Separatist headquarters, and Ventress is there. And of course, Obi-Wan and Ventress are flirting, like always, and it's kind of weird at times, but it's hilarious. It's that, villain versus villain, talking and stuff. and they fight. And what's impressive about this episode is that we get to see Ventress with her dual sabers, and she holds her own against Anakin and Obi-Wan, which also tells us that Anakin and Obi-Wan are not quite where they are when they get to Revenge of the Sith, where they're in tune and Anakin is a little better. They're still not together within the Force, and we kind of see that. And this is the second episode in sequential order, so we kind of see that fight, and it's a really good one. And she even outflanks them a couple times by cutting the floor out from underneath them. And I mean, it's genius. And to see her and to see how, why couldn't they just give her some hair or something? Made her just a little bit attractive. I mean, she's pretty popular, and she ain't pretty at all. That's what I'm trying to say. She is weird looking for a humanoid. But anyways, she outflanks them. She escapes through the glass window, and they follow her outside, and they see that the Separatists have all these ships and droids, battle droids, ready for an attack the next day against the Jedi's control room and their position. Now, with that said, they decide to get back and not fight her anymore. But she held her own. I thought she did good. And when they get back, they realize that the two clones that they had left in charge of finding out who the spy was successful. And before they got there, what I enjoyed is that the clones were actually rolling around and fighting, and we get to see the clones fighting with hand-to-hand combat, and they were blocking each other with their armor. And I thought that was very interesting to see that the clones were I mean, they were good. They were good at how, like, even the spy was able to reach through his legs and grab and twist one of the clone troopers that he was fighting with to the ground, and now he's on top, and now he's punching, but they were blocking. And I just thought the hand-to-hand combat was really good between the clones. But anyways, they capture him, and Anakin and Obi-Wan show up, and that clone is like, Anakin's disappointed, and he's like, yeah, you're a disappointment. And he's like, well, I did this for my brothers. We need to be free. Y'all are slave owners. And I mean, it was just a great in-depth episode of how the Jedi could be construed as the bad guys in a way, and that they, they're being kidnapped as kids, basically, taken to the Jedi Order, and then you follow the rules, and you have to follow the rules, and you're basically running these clone troopers into battle, and they know they're going to die. So yeah, it is. They are kind of bad at sometimes, and I don't know. I found this episode not to be a filler episode. It was awesome to see the clone troopers fight. It was awesome to see the clone troopers actually find a bad clone trooper that felt like Ventress had manipulated him, and that they can be manipulated. And we get to see the human side of the clone troopers, and they were able to figure out who it was by, just using their brains. And then that one, his mind's all messed up because he's blaming the Jedi for him turning to a spy when Ventress was actually manipulating him into thinking that he's not free because he's not free. Ooh. But anyways, so when you watch this episode with, it's season 1, episode 16, when you watch it with season 2, episode 16 as the first one, and the second one, it flows right in. They drop the stuff off to Organa on Christophas, and then this episode starts, which is like going back in release order by a whole year. It actually flows into them now on the ground and fighting to take over the planet, or keep the Separatists from taking over the planet. So in the first episode, which is season 2, episode 16, Anakin and them kill Admiral Trench, but then they get the supplies to the planet. Then they start this movie. They're on the planet helping keep the Separatists from taking over the planet, which moves into the third episode, which is actually not an episode. It's actually the Clone Wars movie, where Ahsoka Tano shows up as Anakin's Padawan, which is the next sequence of show that you should be watching. So you had Cat and Mouse, Hidden Enemy, and then the movie. And those three there together, now I can't remember if the fourth episode ties to them, but to them three together makes a great mini movie. Now, with that said, I want to hear what you think. I am new to watching the animation series. I have watched them now, but I'm going through one at a time and doing a video on each one of them because I want to learn every little bit about it. I'm even reading some of the books. But I want to go through, instead of just watching the episode and enjoying it, I'm studying the episodes and learning what I can. So tell me in the comments stuff I have missed between these first two episodes. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear from the Star Wars fan that is a diehard that has watched these. What did you pick up out of these? And I'm talking about any little thing. Just let me know in the comment section. Even with Anakin and Cat and Mouse not following Obi-Wan's orders to a T, I find it interesting because, you know, I've watched them all, so I know he's a rogue, and it's like, why do they keep allowing him to act the way he acts and not follow the rules? And they all kind of joke about it, you know, well, that's Anakin, and even Yoda and Mace later on in the series. So tell me what you think and what you thought of this episode and anything that you may have learned that I didn't mention, because it's just a lot of stuff twirling up here and I'm trying to learn. And thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button and let me know. All right, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.